Chapter 8. Where's Freddie?
"Watch out, Lids,"
Sophie warned. Lydia looked down at her left arm, where Sophie was pointing. Xander was in the crook of Sophie's right arm. She stooped to put him on the floor. With a gesture of her wand, Sophie stopped the bleeding from Lydia's arm. Another gesture with the wand, and the bloodstains disappeared. The mark on her forearm also vanished. "Oh dear," said Ambrose. "I would welcome you home, Lydia, but you appear to have misplaced something exceedingly important. Sorry to nitpick. It is a delight to see you both here. Please finish the job." Ambrose approached across the entrance hall from the direction of his study door, his eyebrows raised. The girls looked around.
"Freddie!"
they called out together.
"We'll have to go back and get him,"
Sophie said. "Wait," Ambrose snapped. "They have left Bristol."
"What if—"
Sophie began. "That is not surmise," Ambrose interrupted. "The protective magic they had in place has gone. They have moved on."
"He's right, I can feel it,"
Lydia confirmed. Ambrose acknowledged her words with a nod. "You will have to work out where they are now. You have done well between you so far. I do not wish to seem disapproving. You have made good use of your best assets and largely escaped the Death Eaters. Leaving Freddie is a huge misfortune, and unexpected. It seems he was touching the magic which was holding you. That disrupted your ability to bring him here. However, work remains for you to conclude. Freddie is not expendable. The Death Eaters have, as they say, gone to ground. Please bring him back. Off you toddle."
"But if you know where he is,"
Lydia began. "Then you should have no problem finding him, if you've been paying attention," Ambrose retorted.
"The bloody Watcher trapped me in his dreamland,"
she protested. "For less than a day," Ambrose pointed out. "Congratulations on escaping him, by the way. Finish the job quickly now." With that, Ambrose stooped to stroke Xander, then returned to his study.
"He's really worried about Freddie,"
Sophie noted, seeing Lydia's scowl.
"Freddie told me what to look for when Ambrose was worried about you."
Lydia breathed in.
"Are you okay coming with me, Soph?" "Don't even try to stop me," she said. "Anyway, I think Ambrose means for us to stick together. I'm including you, Xander."
Xander inclined his head.
"I just need to go to the bathroom first," said Lydia. "Then we'll go. If only I knew where the heck we were going." "We need to use our assets,"
Sophie said.
"I heard that somewhere."
When Lydia returned, Sophie explained how Xander had helped them find Lydia. She suggested he might be able to trace Freddie. From the way the cat hung his head, it was clear he could not. Sophie thought for a moment.
"He could trace you because he's got a strong link with you."
Lydia nodded slowly.
"So you're saying we need someone who has a strong link with Freddie?" "Yeah, that would be you, Lids."
"Oh yeah," Lydia said. Then remembering their hug in the dream world, she smiled.
"Yes, it would."
Lydia closed her eyes and focused her mind on Freddie and the hug.
"Sorry, Freddie," she said into a space in her mind. "You were still holding the old magic, and I dropped you as we jumped back to the rectory." "It's all right, chick,"
came Freddie's voice into her mind.
"Be nice if you'd come and get me, though. They're talking about killing someone. I think it might be me. And I think they've got some old magic stuff here, so be careful." "Where are you?"
Lydia asked.
"On the other end of this conversation, isn't that enough?"
Freddie said.
"We've separated somewhere else, and I've got a bag over my head. It smells dirty. It smells like it might be their laundry bag." "Stay where you are, and we'll come for you," said Lydia. "Wasn't planning on going anywhere," he assured her. "At least not till you get here."
Lydia felt with her mind along the connection to Freddie. Then she jaunted herself and her two companions along it. They hit a wall, figuratively and actually. Lydia felt the connection being closed off. Then the three of them smacked into something and fell to the ground. Xander growled in a way they'd never heard before. Sophie spoke through gritted teeth.
Hurt my wrist and my shoulder.
Lydia passed a hand over Sophie's shoulder and down her arm. She relaxed.
There, fixed, Lydia said. You okay, Xander?
Her cat gave her a sidelong look. It appeared he was unhurt, apart from his bruised pride. Lydia looked around. It was still early on a winter morning, and the sky here was heavy with cloud. It was as dark as obsidian. Lydia checked and found she still had her wand. The Death Eaters must have thought their sedatives and binding magic would be enough to hold her. Lydia's senses were way beyond being hampered by mere darkness. She could see they were close to a stone-built building, in a clearing at the top of a hill, surrounded by woodland. Her stomach squirmed with horror, but examining the building allayed her concern. It was not a ruin, but a tall square tower. Stepping back, she found there was a slate-roofed rectangular building attached to one side. The building was unexpectedly opaque. She would normally have been able to see inside it. She could sense the old magic charms that seemed to have soaked into the fabric of the stonework. As they had applied the old magic protection to the building, it had broken her connection with Freddie. Neither she nor Ambrose could sense him inside now. The Death Eaters had been too slow, but she hoped they didn't know that.
Can you get us in?
Sophie whispered. Lydia shook her head.
No, their protection specifically stops me, and Xander too, I think. Ambrose told me to remember the things that make me stronger. That's you, Soph. Do you know whereabouts Freddie is inside here?
Sophie asked.
The magic covers the entire building. Xander and I are useless. Harsh, but hilariously true,
Sophie grinned.
Let me try. Hominem Revelio.
Sophie could see several forms glowing through the walls of the tower and its annex. In the darkness they seemed bright. Half a dozen were an orange-yellow, like glowing fire. One was clear white. She smiled with relief. That could only be Freddie, and he was still alive. Realizing that Lydia could not see these details, she explained.
Freddie's at that end. There are two blokes. I guess they're guards. Just this side of him. There are two more at this end, and one walking down from the tower. Oh!
She had now noticed that next to the man who must be walking down the stairs in the tower, there was another figure. This one showed as such a deep red that she could barely see it. It was taller than the man it followed, and was indistinct, as if shrouded in mist.
Lids, got to hurry,
Sophie hissed.
There's somebody weird coming down from the tower. He might be your Grey Watcher.
Take my wand, Lydia growled. Blow the bloody doors in and let's grab Freddie. Sophie took the wand. She lit the tip for a moment, so that she could see where the door was by its light.
Come, Fringo,
she snarled, pointing it at the door. In a blast of bright fire, the door disappeared into the building. The two girls rushed inside. To their left, towards the tower, two men were struggling to their feet amid the debris of the door. One's sleeve was on fire. Sophie was about to stun them, but Lydia swept a hand in their direction and they flew against the door to the tower behind them. They slumped to the floor. The students turned and raced to the door at the other side of the room. From Sophie's Revelio spell, they knew that there were two men with Freddie beyond. Lydia vanished the door. One guard was waiting in the doorway. Sophie stunned him. Lydia rushed past her. The other guard was at the far side of the room, his wand pointing at the hooded figure of Freddie kneeling on the bare, stone-flagged floor.
"Oh, Valda,"
the Death Eater began.
"No!"
Lydia screeched. The man exploded in a mist of blood before he could finish the incantation. Lydia ran forwards and grabbed the blood-spattered Freddie, pulling him to his feet. A deep roar came from behind them. It had a stony, grinding quality. "Blow the wall!" Lydia called to Sophie. "Bombarda!" Sophie shouted. The stones of the wall flew outwards. The roof creaked. Sophie sprinted forwards and grabbed Freddie's other arm. The two girls half carried him out into the chilly night air. The scene changed to the entrance hall of the old rectory. "By the gods!" Ambrose swore, entering the hall from his study. The three humans dripped with blood. Xander seemed untouched. Gore covered Freddie down one side. Sophie pulled the blood-soaked hood from Freddie's head and threw it down in disgust. She stood still, looking at Freddie, Lydia's wand hanging in a limp hand. Lydia stood slightly apart from them, pallid and shaking. Ambrose stepped towards them. With a dismissive flick of his hand, the blood and stone dust and the hood disappeared. He spread his arms wide and gathered the youngsters to him in a hug. Xander looked on. "You should come and sit and have a hot drink," he intoned. He ushered them through the doorway into the breakfast kitchen. It was warm, and there was a comforting scent of baking bread. He helped them onto chairs at the table. None of them spoke. Lydia gulped and sobbed. Sophie shivered. Freddie looked at the girls, concern clear on his face. Fenton appeared, but Ambrose had already conjured a teapot and mugs. Fenton poured tea into the mugs, adding milk and sugar. "Sweet, hot tea," Ambrose said. "A quintessentially British cure for shock. Surprisingly, it works. Drink." "I killed a man," Lydia whimpered after taking a sip of her tea. "I thought you must have," said Freddie. "It was a bit messy," Sophie explained. "I killed a man. A human living person with parents." "You saved your friend," Ambrose pointed out. "He was going to kill Freddie," Sophie added. "And we escaped the Watcher just in time." "He was there?" Ambrose gasped. "We didn't see him," Sophie admitted. "Not directly. I cast Hominem Revelio, and we saw a dark red figure. It was tall and blurry, which made me think of Lydia's description. We heard him shout as well." "Unusual," Ambrose mused, "though possible. Rather concerning, however. It has been over 3,000 years since the last time." "He didn't need to die," Lydia continued, seeming not to have heard the conversation. "Lids," said Freddie, "you saved my life. We were in a rush to get out, and he was halfway through the killing curse, and the Grey Watcher was behind you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because of you, I'm alive." "Because of me, you got caught," Lydia moaned. "That was an accident," Ambrose soothed. "Freddie happened to be touching the old magic at the wrong time. And you were right to deplore killing. That man, as you say, had a family, and was somebody's son. But he was by no means innocent. He was about to kill. Your killing him was necessary. Sometimes we must do what works, when there is no time to decide what is ideal. The one who is truly to blame is the Grey Watcher." "You will need to return to Hogwarts, even so," Ambrose pointed out to Lydia later in his study. "If nothing else, there's still the question of choosing your companions." "I don't want to drag any more of my friends into danger," she said. "I'm afraid that is not an available option," said Ambrose. "That is, unless you wish to ensure your own death, the deaths of Freddie and Sophie, and of course the failure of our world. Oh, and all the deaths consequent upon that." They sat in silence for a long moment. Lydia hiccuped, then began to sob. Ambrose rose from his seat and moved to her side. He knelt and put an arm round her. She dropped her hands from her face and looked at him. "I don't want this. I don't want it. I don't want to be a killer."
I don't want to have to save the world. I just want my daddy.
She slipped from her chair to kneel on the floor. Ambrose joined her, kneeling on the carpet and putting his arms about her. She buried her face in his shoulder. The tweed of his waistcoat was rough, but she didn't mind. It smelt of Uncle Ambrose, her childhood, safety. Ambrose spoke. His voice rumbled and resonated in her ear, pressed against him still. I never wanted to lead you into danger, Lydia. Never from the first time I looked upon you as an infant, through the many years that I've watched you grow into this incredible young woman, queen, warrior. I admit I have lied, manipulated, conspired and connived. But it had to be so, or billions would have had no options other than death or enslavement by the Alterworlders. The task my foolishness has made necessary has fallen upon you, your family and your friends. Lydia nodded and sagged in resignation. How many companions will I need? 5 more at least, Ambrose said, rocking backwards, then rising to his feet. For reasons which will eventually become clear. I can provide more people to help you up to a point. After that, you and 7 or more of your closest companions must go forward. Xander will be with you, but he will not count as a companion in this sense. I have people in mind, Lydia told him, as she took to her seat once more. But we must give them a choice, surely. Ambrose nodded. Quite so. If you have any refusals, I must insist that you ensure they have no memory of your asking them. Lydia nodded her agreement. And once you have chosen them, and they have agreed, you must give each of them one of these to wear. He handed her a handful of coloured woven bracelets. Lydia pulled a face. Friendship bracelets? What use are they? It's not like I'm going to forget who I've chosen. Well, there is always a possibility you might, Ambrose corrected her. But the issue here is that the Grey Watcher is abroad. These tokens will protect the wearers and make it harder for the Watcher to influence them. Sophie, Freddie, and even Teddy Lupin already have theirs, and have had for some time. Ginny Potter has a drawer full of them in her kitchen, which I shall remind her to distribute to friends and family. Do I need one? Lydia asked. Ambrose smiled. More than anyone, but you are already wearing something considerably more powerful. She looked at her wrists and saw nothing. The old man shook his head. Not there. On your head, O Queen of the 1,000 Forests. The silver circlet that Maddock the Centaur gave me, Lydia remembered. The very same, Ambrose confirmed. Do not forget it. It will serve you well at the correct time. Now, however, we should gather the others together. You must return them to their respective dormitories before their classmates awaken. Modify memories if you are seen. You yourself will go to Minerva's office and pretend to the school at large that you have arrived by the Flu Network. A prankster's port key took you from the train, should anyone ask. The others are going to be exhausted, Lydia noted. They've only just dropped off to sleep and now we've got to go. You have the capabilities to aid them with that, Ambrose reminded her. Is it all right to do that? I don't like messing about with people's minds, especially not my friends. Ambrose gave her a quizzical frown. You would let them sleep to help them, would you not? Of course, she said. Then what is the difference in helping this way? He asked. She shrugged. Soothe their minds and bodies, but do not alter them in any other way, Ambrose told her. There is no harm in that, surely. I don't want to see anything in their minds that I shouldn't see, she explained. Then do not look anywhere you should not, he smiled. It really is that simple. Self-discipline, my dear. It's too tempting, though. Ambrose chuckled. I found that once. It becomes easier after the first 1,000 years or so. You could always liken it to reading someone else's diary. I know how averse you are to such practices.
That helps so much.
Sarcasm dripped from her tone.
Wake your friends.
Deliver them to their beds. Choose your companions. I shall speak to you in a few days. Lydia gave him a weary nod.